Okay, let's try a different sort of script that starts to look at agent behavior. So I'm going to start this one by making a brep, excuse me, a box in Rhino. And make it at 0, 0, 0. And make it 50, by 50, by 50. Bring the box in the grass holler. Okay, so that's going to be our bounding box. That's going to be the space that we're going to work within. So I want to populate that space with a number of points. Start with something a little lower. And just like before, I want to make the move. These points. And there's Z direction. And they move. Now if we include that inside of a loop, we'll take these points, move them, run them back through. And put a reset on that. Okay, so they're falling, they're doing it continuously, and they'll continue to do it for 1,000 iterations. Let's turn that down. We probably won't need to go more than 100 right now. Okay, so if we want those to stay within the box, then we need to set up certain criteria. One thing I want to do is move the vector outside the loop. So we're going to start with a vector like that. Okay, so it's doing the same thing. We're going to start with a vector. Move the point. And we're going to loop through that a bunch of times. So one thing I want to do is test to see if it's hitting the box. So if it hits the box, I want it to bounce off. So we know the box is 0 by 50 in all directions. So basically, if our point gets below 0, it's going to be below the box, and it should then move in the other direction as if it's going to bounce off the wall. So we can start to use our points. And our vectors. We can say if this z value is below 0, change the z value of the vector to be from -1 to +1. So let's set that up. If this z value is below 0, then let's put this up. And then take the vector value and make that negative. So if it's -1, it'll be a +1. If it's +1, it'll be a -1. So then I can rebuild that vector. Move this down here. So the x and the y vector will stay the same. We will weave our points back together. So smaller than is true, we'll go to true. Our B is our ones that are not smaller than, they'll go false. And our weave pattern follows the same logic as our smaller than. So you can plug that back into the Z. And that's how we'll move them. So let's see what happens there. Oh, it's actually not working the way we hoped it would be. What I want to do is actually think of these as individuals. Oh, so I'm gonna graph these independently and see if that helps. It does, but they're bouncing up and down instead of continuously moving. So let's see. So if the z value is smaller than 0, then we're going to take that z value Oh, this is the problem that you guys were having in class, where it was not making this a data tree. Let's see if I can add that again. Okay, that seems to be working. So maybe that's something that you guys did in class as well, where you weren't plugging this in at the end, so we get the same amount of data coming in as we do coming out. So now those are bouncing, and they continue up. Now we need to set an upper limit, so if they reach the top, they would then bounce down as well. So I'm going to set this up to say if the z value is larger than 50, and if it's smaller than, or if it's larger than, then we want to reverse it. So if it's smaller than 0, moving in the negative direction, it's going to flip around and move it in the positive direction. If it's larger than 50, moving in the positive direction, it's going to flip it around and move in the negative direction. Try to organize this a little bit. Let's see if this works. So it hits the bottom, it moves up, hits the top, moves down. So we're able to constrain it in the z direction in both cases. Okay, so let's try to do it in both the x and y now. So I'm gonna add a number to these. So if this number of the vector is below, then I'm going to change, sorry, if this number of the position is below or above, then I'm going to change the vector in this case. So that is basically the condition we're changing for each one of these. So I can say that this one is going to be the z value. Now I can make the copy of this. And do the same thing for the y. So the y and the y value. Replace the y value here. And this will be for the x. So the x value will go there, and the x value will go there, and the new x value will go there. So what this should be doing, try to make this a little more visible for you guys to see. So for each one of these points, which is right here, I'm testing if the x, y, and z are less than 0 or greater than 50. And if they are, I'm going to switch these around and make them negative. In both the x, y, and z. So it should bounce off of all sides of that edge. So it bounces off this side, it bounces off this side. But we're only moving it in the z direction, so we can't test and see if the other one works. So let's add, instead of just a standard z direction for all of these, let's add a random vector to all of them to see if the other sides are working. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a random x, y, and z value. Build a vector. And I want there to be as many different vectors as there are points. So I can get just a list length of all these points. And I want that number of random values. So 55 points and 55 vectors. So this is my random vector. Let's test it out. So some of them are moving really slow, some of them are moving fast because it's all between 0 and 1. Let's move 1,000 iterations so we can see how that works. Now, if I wanted to make them all a little faster, I could set that domain to be high. If I wanted them all to move a little slower, you would set it lower. I can also unitize this vector to make them all move approximately 1 unit per time. So great, we have a bunch of random agents sort of moving around, constrained within a box. Let's see if we can make them react to each other. So what I want to do is get the point closest points. And take these points and I want to test them with all the other points. So I'm going to flatten this down into one list. And I want to pick, let's say, the 6 closest points. Let's simplify these just so we can see a little better. Okay, so we have 330 points. Sorry, 55 points. And we're testing what are the 6 closest points to each one. So that gives me 330 points in total. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a line from this point to its closest point. Pull it up. And so it's drawn a line between these 6 closest points. Let's visualize that a little bit. You can see how these lines are disappearing and reappearing depending on where they are in space. Okay, so we can consider that, say, the neighborhood. All the lines that are connected are the ones that are closest to it. Now, if we wanted to, we can say only if these lines are within a specific distance, maybe they're within 10, do we want it to react to it. So in that case, only ones that are really close will consider part of this neighborhood. But if it's further away, it's not thinking about those neighbors anymore. Okay, so let's see what happens if we want it to consider those. Maybe we all the lines that are connected we want to use those as vectors to sort of adjust where that point is going. So what I'm going to do I'm going to take these indices, or I can take these lines, either one. Let's use the indices. And ideally, if I was using this as a dispatch, I would want to use same dispatch of these indices to separate those out. I can also turn these into vectors. An average vector. I could take these 55 vectors and pull them out individually, so I could sort of get different information out of these as I wanted to. Let's try the other one first. Let's try this. So we have an average vector for all of its neighbors, or all the lines connecting to its neighbors. So if we somehow use that to adjust this, actually going to give it a little multiple just to turn its value down a little bit. And I can add this vector to this vector. It gives me a new vector. Let's see what that does. It starts to group these together, so as you can see them getting close to each other, they'll start to like swarm and follow each other a little bit more, and as they get away from each other, then they'll spread out. Let's see what happens if I turn that up a little bit. You can see them start to clustering in little groups. Something else I can do is use more of these points. So I can start to make these algorithms that allow these points to sort of work as a collective entity. So these individual units, these you can call them birds or boids, as they're often called, are now flocking together. They're sort of flying in formation. As one changes the angle, the other ones try to react to that. Now, this can get a lot more complicated in terms of when they separate and come together, or how they use the other birds. I can allow them a little more leeway to spread out. I can incorporate more points. So the two separate sections eventually will join together into one, maybe split apart, start reacting to each other more and more. If I take this distance off and just use these points as is, and they should flock together as a group a bit more. You can see that these are trying to get to those. So you're able to create very complex behavior of patterns with pretty simple set of rules. That's it.